All right, how you guys doing today? We are doing over on this side so much better. Truly embracing the biblical idea of rest and just, singing all day for the Lord and just living for the Lord today. It was just beautiful. I feel so invigorated, so rejuvenated, so blessed to be alive. So much better than I was feeling yesterday. Like I don't know what yesterday was, you know what I'm saying? But what we did, we prayed through it, we worshiped through it. And through that, we take our mind off of the things of this world and we focus on God for a little bit. And it should be all the time. It should be all the time to put the things of this world to the back burner and God all the time. However, it's hard to do that at all times. And I can admit that, right? It's hard to focus fully on God, especially when like personally, I'm half undergraduate, half grad school. I got jobs, plural. I got commitments, work assignments. Everything like that is hard to focus on God sometimes, right? However, you rest, you take a day, even if it's in the middle of the week, even if it's, just get your mind off that stuff. God's plan is laid out before you. He's laid the good works out for you. He's done everything in his power, right? And when it comes to like strong assignments and a lot of stuff like that, I'm really usually good, right? Actually, I had planned that we were gonna do Genesis. We're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this in a deep, in-depth manner. First things first, I'll make sure you like the video, exit the full screen, scroll just a little bit, like the video, full screen and back up. You feel me, right? But usually when it comes to like stuff along the lines of big assignments and big projects and stuff that kind of looms over your head for a little bit in terms of, date wise, and then it comes up very fast and you're like, huh, I got this and that to do. When it comes to all that stuff, generally I would say I'm pretty good at saying like, God's got it firstly. That's like the key phrase that I say when I'm dealing with that stuff. But then following that, I'm thinking, this is God's plan for me. It's cool, right? And then I think back to in high school, it used to be so many different things, right? Because there used to be them days where it's like I had 7 classes a day. You got homework for like probably 5 out of the 7 of those, and then some other stuff sprinkled in, and then you got practice after and all that. And I'm getting like 3 hours of sleep because freshman me could do that in the high as a high schooler, and I'm just thinking like back to those days, everything got done, right? Not that I was doing it in the Lord, but everything got done. I was like, no matter the amount of time I do or don't spend on stuff, somehow everything just magically gets done, right? And I'd say magically in quotations because now I know that it was God and he was putting a guiding hand over me. Not to say that like I could be lazy or whatever, but you have to have that kind of like in your life discernment to see, what can't, I don't want to say what you can get away with, but what God will want you to focus on, what He won't want you to focus on. Which could you could say it's a nice way of saying be lazy, right? But you kind of get that sense, because there's some things that like I'm in grad school. There's a lot of stuff that I'm doing right now that I'm like, I don't think this is gonna transfer very well to my actual real life job, right? This is graduate level school. This is you're paying more money for this education, which is supposed to be more curated to your specialization. All I can think about is this isn't useful, this isn't useful, this might be useful, and I'm keeping an open mind on it, but who knows for real, right? And all this stuff in my head, and I'm just like, it'll get done, right? Like, I know that I'm not the type of person to not submit an assignment. If I gotta stay up to 2 a.m. to get an assignment done, I'm staying up at 2 a.m. If I gotta pull an all nighter to get an assignment done, I'm gonna do it. And you don't want to know why I'm gonna do it? Because it's gotta get done. It is something that has to get done. But and then I was talking to my philosophy based friend a couple years ago about this, and I remember this so vividly because I was explaining the same thing I was explaining, which I've probably explained somewhere on the channel before, but it's just good to re-emphasize and share this in case somebody else is listening. But I was told that it's a very stoic mindset of, you just say, if I have to work till 6 a.m., I know that once 6 a.m. hits, it'll be over. You think back to all the past pain you've experienced, stress you've experienced, and all that type of feeling where you're just like, I want this to be over. I want this to be over. And then think back to how you felt in the middle of it, and then think back to how you feel now. I guarantee you, almost, right? There may be somebody special in watching. You don't remember every single time you stubbed your toe or, lost something or whatever for like a short period of time. But in the midst of that, I almost guarantee you, right? Maybe you don't do this, right? But you're probably thinking, I just want this to be over. Why does this have to happen right now, right? Like women, not to generalize, right? But if you cry about stuff, think about, I just want this to be over, all the things that made you cry. think about where those things are now. Fellas, every time you felt pain, every time you know, had just some giant thing you were worried about, stressed about that was coming up, that you're like, I gotta get this done. And then, you know, not to say that those situations aren't inversely, you know, applicable to either gender, but, you know, on a generalization scale, we can do that, and we could be men about it, right? Right. Anyway, so, you know, think about you in the midst of those troubling situations, right? The midst of those trials and tribulations, and then think about you now. You don't think about those all the time. That's this. I guarantee you don't remember every single assignment you had to submit, and you were fighting the deadline and everything like that. And if you're not a procrastinator, or, you know, you just get things done super early and you can lock in for real, then I guess this isn't for you necessarily. But, you know, most normal people will say, is if you do that, you're extraordinary. Good for you. But most normal people, I guarantee you don't remember every single assignment that you had to fight the deadline on. You know what I'm saying? Because it don't matter after a while, because you start thinking about the next deadline and the next deadline, and that's exactly what God wants us to do. He doesn't want us to dwell on, oh, I did this and I fell here. He wants it to be, oh, I fell here, let's focus on the next time where I can do good, right? Where I can fulfill that good work that he's laid out in front of me, right? I didn't choose the good work here, let's focus on the next one, right? And even in one of the songs, you guys don't really know about my music like that, but even through one of my songs, I had a line that said, when the game's over, don't even look at the board, just go home, wash up, and get ready for the next time that you're gonna step on the floor. Because it's really that simple. Not simple, it's really that I don't want to say efficacious, it's really that efficient, right? You don't necessarily need to look at, did I win, did I lose. It's not that important, right? It may affect how you play in the game if you're winning or losing, but once the game is over, you know, when that check gets added to your record on a win, lose, or on a draw side of it, it doesn't really matter. What you should do is you should be thinking about, how can I improve as a player? How can I be the best version of myself that I can be? And how can I go forward to make sure that I have the outcome that I want to in every game moving forward, right? Notice how I said outcome that you want to, because it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to go win every game. Maybe you don't want to win every game. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you are just content with getting as many assists as possible. Maybe you're content with playing the best defense you can, right? And you know that it's not realistic to focus on winning a game, but it's realistic that you can focus on, you know, upping your defensive capabilities. Because maybe it's a team game. It's a team game. Maybe your team is not good. However, with the relationship with God, it's pretty much just you and God, which is still a team. And the Son and the Holy Spirit, I guess, right? Which is a team, you know, and you just got to focus, like, how can I be the best teammate in this situation? How can I be the best player in this situation? And how can I go forward and make sure that I can be the best I can be with the outcome I want to have? And I say the outcome you want to have in this scenario too, because there's some Christians who will say, you know, my best outcome is, you know, submitting fully to the Father and making sure every good work that I walk in is completed in a good sense. And there's some Christians who would say, like, you know, they got smaller goals than that. It's just, I want to improve my praying, and I want to increase my Bible reading. And then, you know, you got some lukewarm people that'll just say, you know, I just want to wear my Jesus cross more, and that's it. And that's all they'll ever aspire to do. And that's, you know what I'm saying? If you believe in Jesus, you believe in Jesus. I'm not here to tell you, you know, that you have to do more or you're not saved, right? There's no legalism here, but, like, you know, you should aspire to do more. Like we're reading in John on our study side, you know, we see that if you are of him, you cannot continue in sin. If you're continuing in sin and you don't have that renewal of your heart and changing of your mind, then are you in him? I can't answer that question. You can't answer that question. Only he can, because he knows your heart. I don't, you don't. You might. If you're feeling convicted, you're probably in him. If you hear me saying, like, you're not doing enough kind of thing, and you're like, meh, I don't gotta do enough. But why don't you want to do enough? There's two ways. There's I don't have to do enough, like, it's not legalism. Doesn't matter how much I do, I'm still saved. Then you're good. If it's like that, you know, it don't matter how much I do, he died for my sins. I could do whatever I want. And it's like, all right, now we gotta pump the brakes. Now we gotta do an oil check here. I don't know if you need to change your oil. I don't know if your oil's been changed. You gotta examine that. He's gotta examine that, right? But the point being, all in all, you know, think back to those times where you were suffering through something. You don't really think about that too much now. You may reference them on some occasions, like when somebody else is going through something similar, you may say, I remember how that felt, and then, you know, explain, like, you know, this got me through it, but thinking about it, you're thinking about it in that sense of you got through it. You're not thinking about it like, oh, I remember that sucked, and it's probably the worst experience. You don't want to keep that person in that negative mindset. You want to say, Hey, just think about when it's over and when it's done. You're gonna be good. You're gonna be doing whatever you want to do in the sense of what you can do, and it's gonna be fine. And sometimes that's all you gotta do. Sometimes you just gotta thank God. You gonna get me through this, and that's all that matters, right? And then for me, because I know that this is the path that God has put me on, I say to myself like, God, this is your path for me. I'm gonna I'm gonna output exactly the scenario you want me to do. You want me to complete because this is your path. It's not about me. I'm gonna do according to your path. You're gonna have the outcome you want to have with the work that I put in and the effort that I put in. You say no, it's a no. If you say yes, it's a yes. But what I know you don't want for me is stress. And that's a bar, right? God never wants you to stress. That's why he tells us rest in the Lord. Rejoice always, pray always, because prayer is supposed to reap this patience, this joy, and every single good feeling that God is, because he's love, which is just goodness and light and everything. And it's just like that's what he is. And that's what he wants us to have, because he's living inside of us, and he wants us to shine outwards into the world like that, right? So if you're dealing with something like that, just know that God's with you. Pray, rest in him. Other than that, not much more you can do, and you just kind of leave it up to him at that point. Help your mental state. Put your mind on it. If your mind can't help but be anxious, just tell it. Just constantly tell yourself, God's got it. God's got it. Write it down. Put it all over your computer. I don't know what you got to do, but just put God got you everywhere that you can see until you know. Until you know. Other than that, I hope you guys have yourself a fantastic rest of your days. Peace.